For several years, people in East Boston have been struggling with air quality problems connected with expansion of Logan Airport and rising levels of traffic congestion. One effort to mitigate the problem is to install air filters, but also to help measure pollution levels and guide decisions about activities outdoors. To tell us about some of the recent efforts, including air purifiers and sensors at a daycare center, is a member of a nonprofit advocating stronger environmental protections. We'd like to welcome the coordinator for Mothers Out Front, Sonja Tengblad. Thank you very much for being with us, Sonja.
Thank you for having me.
Sonja, I know Mothers Out Front is only one group that's trying to do something about the air problems, but tell us a little bit about that organization and what its goals are.
Sure. Mothers Out Front is a national nonprofit powered by, we say, mothers and others who are concerned with general climate change issues nationwide. But each team that starts focuses on local issues. So when I founded the East Boston chapter, we knew pretty quickly that we couldn't address anything surrounding climate change that affects our kids before we address the problem of air pollution.
Well, for a long time, I think we relied on cliches to guide us that the air was fresher in the countryside than it is in the cities, and there isn't much you can do about that. But getting closer to the science here, what about this problem in East Boston, and what can be done about it?
Sure. Well, a 2014 Logan Airport study actually showed that we have a 360% increase in childhood asthma rates and 200% increase in adult COPD rates. So we knew these things. Um, and with recent research being done by Scott Hersey and his team from Air Partners out of Olin College, we are now starting to get third-party data showing exactly the exposure that we are exposed to in East Boston. So we know the high level of ultrafine particulate pollution that our kids grow up in, and what that is doing to our bodies. We also know that 70% of ambient pollution makes it indoors. So we know that, there's some things we can do about outdoor pollution. We focus on trees, but we're really concerned with getting specific models of HEPA air purifiers into our public schools, knowing just how much that pollution makes it indoors.
Well, I know diesel emissions are bad enough in themselves, but and you can smell them certainly, but they're
Yes.
not the fine particulates. What's so dangerous about those? What do they do to people's bodies?
Yeah, ultrafine particulates are a special type of pollution particle that can cross the blood barrier. And so they can make it into our organs, they can damage organs, and just cause a slew of developmental issues. And for our kids, we're really concerned with this because their bodies and organs are still developing. So they've linked exposure to ultrafine particulates, which we call UFPs, to autism, early onset dementia, behavioral problems in children, just a slew of issues. So we're really concerned about it.
Well, you knew that at least a couple of years ago, but now the pandemic has come to town. How does that overlap with this?
Yeah, East Boston saw the highest rates of COVID in all of Boston. And we also know out of the Harvard Public School of Health that there was an 8% increase in mortality rates amongst people who have high exposure to UFPs. So it's really hit East Boston quite hard. We're also 58% Latinx families in East Boston, and environmental racism, related to air pollution is rampant worldwide. So we're really concerned about that issue as well.
Well, one of the ways that you're trying to combat this is by having some kind of devices put into buildings that are used by a number of people, whether it's the Dante Alighieri School or the East Boston Social Center, or more recently, a daycare center in East Boston. So explain, how do these things work and how do they help?
Yeah, so this is an effort by Scott Hersey and Air Partners out of Olin College. So Scott has done a couple pilot programs putting air sensors outside a few buildings, the Dante Alighieri School, as you mentioned, and the East Boston Social Centers, as well as Austin Air HEPA purifiers that have a lot of research done about them and their efficacy. So we know that they're effective, and especially out of these pilot programs, we know that they reduce exposure to UFPs, and we know that they're able to help people who are housed inside these buildings. So we're really excited by the data that's come out from these pilot programs. And recently, Scott and his team installed these into the Shining Star Daycare on Border Street. So we're really excited because not all early child care centers are able to afford these things for their kids. So we're really excited about this new installation.
Maybe it's too soon to tell, but because one of the things you want to do when you measure the air quality is to know if the purifiers are effective. Anything you can tell us at this point?
We know that these filters can reduce exposure by up to 82%. So they're extremely effective. And not all air filters, air purifiers are created equal. Some air purifiers actually release more UFPs and ozone into the air. Some of them just aren't as effective at capturing those, really small particles. But we know that these air purifiers do. Austin Air. So that's our brand of choice. And what Mothers Out Front is out there, trying to advertise.
Well, this is, one part of a much bigger strategy because I guess there's thinking here that maybe we got to have these purifiers in every single home. Plus, there are other things outdoors that might help as well with the air pollution hazards. Fill in that bigger picture a little bit. What are people talking about?
Sure. Well, there's actually Scott Hersey's team has developed an air quality app that can be run by third-party data showing us real-time air pollution rates and exactly what type of molecules are in the air at any given moment. So that's going to be rolling out soon. We're really excited about that. So families can choose, is this a good time to bring my child to the park? Or should I go to a different part of the neighborhood that doesn't look like it's, as concentrated right now? So that's one thing we're excited about. We're also trying to increase our tree canopy. They're our greatest, warriors of air purification or trees, and we have the lowest tree canopy in all of Boston. So we're really trying to work with the city to increase our tree canopy. So those are two things. And Air Inc. is a longtime advocacy nonprofit in the area as well, and we work with them very closely just to build awareness. I mean, there's a mix of who's aware of what we're exposed to, and just what people know about measures they can take to protect themselves. But we really do think that if if Logan is going to be in the neighborhood, they need to offer mitigation to those who live there. So all we're asking for at this point is these air purifiers in our public schools, and just open dialogue about that.
I want to ask you about awareness because a lot of us who live in the city, well, we know what it's like in the summer. We go out, we take walks, or we jog, and we're going past areas with a lot of traffic. And when we come home, we're almost out of breath, and we're thinking, "Well, it's me. I caught a cold or something. I'm allergic to something." But awareness, me connecting that to other things. Why is that important?
Well, I think that, this, especially this growing body of research about specifically ultrafine particulates, it's a fairly new field of research, and we're just beginning to know what that does to our bodies. So we really, I mean, this goes into such a larger picture of needing to change our reliance on fossil fuels. We know worldwide, one out of every five deaths is linked to fossil fuel emissions. So this is a huge problem that we need to start addressing. We need to look at different modes of transportation and, at the very least, mitigation to protect families against pollution, especially in neighborhoods like ours where, we don't really have a choice of what we're exposed to.
Well, speaking of awareness, you also have an event coming up that will help a little bit in that direction.
Yes, this weekend, this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. The rain date will be Sunday on Mother's Day, same time. We are doing a big community art build, trying to just, expose people to the issue of air pollution and what they can do about it to protect themselves and advocate for themselves. So we're going to spell the word aire, that's Spanish for air, also, symbolizing that we're mostly Latinx families in East Boston, and, the environmental racism we face. So those big letters will be filled with green plants. People can come help and finish that installation. We're also going to have a big sidewalk mural by a local muralist, Suri Chavez. And so she and the other designer, Danielle Meeker-Emond, have designed a beautiful day for people to come and learn about the issue and what they can do. We're also going to roll out the new Adopt a Tree program with Tree Easties. So come on by. Anyone who comes will be entered to win a raffle for a free Austin Air HEPA filter.
And one more thing, you've got a website people can get more details on too?
Yes, it's quite long. If you just Google Mothers Out Front East Boston, you should get to us. But the URL is quite long, so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, that was good enough for me. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you very much.
It was Sonja Tengblad from Mothers Out Front in East Boston. We'll have more news in just a moment.